BRICS are guys who and people and groupings of countries that were tired. Think of it in a school context. You were getting bullied by this group of guys, and those guys, because they were picking on you because you were singular. It was just you. You can't walk past those guys back and like all the time you're getting hassled. So suddenly you decided, look, there's actually quite a lot of us who are undergoing the same sort of like discrimination, bullying, whatnot. Why don't we just walk past these bullies together? That's how it started. So 5 guys decided, let's just walk together. Common interest. We feel like we're not getting enough from this schooling environment, and it's petegagbi. So what can we do? We can band together. We have common interests, right? Not enemies. Common interest. A lot of people think BRICS is about enemies. It's not. It's not anti-West. It's about common interest and strategic interests.
The US dollar has long been the primary global reserve currency, but the coalition of emerging economies known as BRICS are challenging its dominance. These nations are collaborating to establish a new currency that would reduce their reliance on the dollar and to strengthen their economic and political influence. The journey towards this BRICS currency initiative began in 2009 when the leaders of these 5 countries came together in Russia. Their discussions surrounded trade, investment, infrastructure, energy, and security. A key objective was to reform the global monetary system, which they believed favored the US and its allies. Several key elements constitute the BRICS currency project: the new development bank, the contingent reserve arrangement, and a shared payment system.
Some concrete accomplishments from BRICS. There's the new development bank, which is a multilateral development bank, which is giving funding at the moment to about 13 projects in South Africa. So that's one achievement. There's something called the contingent reserve arrangement, which is a swap arrangement amongst the central banks in the BRICS, which could be used in the event of a crisis. Hopefully we never have to use it, but it could be used. The third accomplishment is trade between the BRICS countries has been growing. A lot of that is attributable to China. Whether that would have happened without the BRICS is hard to know. So whether you can attribute all the growth in trade to BRICS or whether it's just the way the world economy works is difficult to know, which is probably why I'm not willing to give it a clear grade. The other thing I'd say is you need to look at the BRICS in the way as the tip of a tip of an iceberg. The summit is the tip of the iceberg that we can see, but beneath that, there are lots of meetings that go on over the course of the year between different government departments, different government officials, and those interactions are important. It helps countries learn from each other to develop closer relations if they need it in a crisis. And so that, in that sense, the BRICS has been useful as well.
The NDB, created in 2014, provides funding for sustainable development projects in the BRICS nations and other developing nations. The CRA, initiated in 2015, established a pool of foreign exchange reserves to support BRICS members during the balance of payment crisis. Meanwhile, the upcoming common payment system, anticipated by 2023, which is this year, aims to facilitate trade and investment among the BRICS nations using a basket of currencies that includes the Brazilian real, Russian ruble, Indian rupee, Chinese yuan, and the South African rand. The BRICS currency endeavor isn't solely about economics, it's also deeply political. It reflects BRICS countries' discontent with the US-led global order, which they perceive as unjust and dominant. They seek a more influential role in global issues like climate change, human rights, international peace and security. The project faces opposition from the US and its allies, who view it as a challenge to their interests, and skepticism from experts who question its feasibility. They argue that the BRICS countries' differing economic and political agendas could undermine collaboration. Additionally, creating a new currency requires more than just intent. It hinges on trust, stability, liquidity, and network effects. In today's ever-changing world of economics, the question of whether South Africa should adopt the BRICS currency has sparked quite a debate. This video aims to dive deep into the potential pros and cons of South Africa jumping on board with the BRICS currency for its international trade. We'll then explore what could happen economically if South Africa goes along with this idea, delving into its effects on exchange rates, inflation, global relationships, and more. We'll also take a look at what might occur if South Africa decides not to join the BRICS currency movement while its fellow BRICS nations do. Let us break down the possible upsides and downsides of South Africa adopting the BRICS currency. On one hand, using a shared currency could mean lower costs and less confusion when trading internationally. This could make foreign investment more appealing. On the flip side, though, it could mean giving up some control over our money. Shared currency means shared rules for managing money, which might restrict our ability to respond to changes in our own economy.
So maybe let me take the currency thing a little bit back. I'm adding on to what Usamkelo was saying. So money is very crucial, and in the 1970s, basically America basically said our money will not be pegged to a substance like gold, right? We're just gonna go off vibes. So American dollars are vibes. It's based off branding, right? It's actually a brand because they say our military power, our interests across the globe, etc., allow them to print this money so that they can control things. Then the biggest thing that hits people outside of those that use the dollar as their currency, like America, etc., you get hit by something very simple, which is interest, my brother. If you have to understand how money is created in the system, money is created off nothing, it's created off interest. So what happens is that these guys can print money, but you have to work twice as hard to create the new money that was not existent even for them. So what you actually get is that you realize that the system is rigged. And that's why BRICS said, why do we have to trade with each other in a currency that we both don't own? And then you have to go to the petrodollar, which was basically using dollars to buy the energy of the world, which is oil. Right? So they got all of the OPEC countries to accept dollars as the way of trade to buy crude oil. So BRICS again is asking themselves, Mara, this thing ain't sense, Buffett. Why do we have to use that guy's money to buy things between the two of us? When oil, I've got money of my own. So that's where currency became a necessity, right? And also the way of money moving around the planet was important. That's why some people are saying the SWIFT system, a lot of people don't even understand, but I'm sure you guys have done gigs elsewhere in yes. Africa. So finally, a SWIFT number, right? Yeah. That number actually tracks imali going around globally, and it's Western owned. Right? They're tracking it in their way. And you actually can't move money without a SWIFT number. So that's why the BRICS guys said, we must have an alternative. Listen to this. We're not fighting what you have. We are saying there must be an alternative. And that's where the currency conversation is coming. And also, we want to finance our own things in our own currency, where the interest rate, we don't have to pay in your currency, which you deem to be more valuable than ours.
But what does an expansion mean? My concern could be that if already we are the lowest step, respectfully, of the BRICS ladder, by bringing in bigger African economies like Nigeria, we could get pushed further down. I'm worried about that.
I think that is a legitimate worry. There's a lot of disagreement, or there's disagreement amongst the BRICS about whether to expand and how to expand. And so the first issue before any countries get admitted is going to be, what are the criteria for admitting new countries? For a country like South Africa, which is the smallest of the BRICS countries, there's a great benefit to being part of an exclusive club. It's a small club. We get to meet once a year. Our president gets to meet with the president of China, the prime minister of India, to have discussions with them. The more you expand the group, the less exclusive it becomes. At the moment, as the only African country in the group, we have a privileged position, and that position could be diminished if more African countries or more other countries are admitted.
What would happen if South Africa goes all in with the BRICS currency? It could make trading with other BRICS nations smoother due to fewer uncertainties about exchange rates. However, we also need to think about how this might shift our focus towards BRICS trade and away from our other important trading partners. It's a balancing act between building strong BRICS connections and not neglecting our global relationships. Let us take a deep dive into how a common BRICS currency could shake things up for South Africa's exchange rates. The good part is that it might lead to steadier exchange rates within the BRICS group, which would be good for everyone's financial stability. But there's also that risk when one BRICS economy stumbles, it could affect us too. That might not be so great. So this part is all about how the BRICS currency could mess with South Africa's inflation and overall prices. On one hand, if we all have similar inflation rates, it could help even things out, but on the other hand, it might make it harder for us to control our own inflation. We'll have to be really smart about how we handle our money to keep everything in check. Now, we are looking at the bigger picture, how the BRICS currency could change our relationships with other countries and how our businesses would fare in the world. It could make us closer with other BRICS nations, which might boost our influence, but it could also strain relationships with our old pals who aren't part and parcel of the BRICS group. And for businesses, it's a mixed bag. Yes, there might be a bumpy start, but in the long run, the stable currency and more trade could be good news. This part dives into how the BRICS currency could impact our foreign exchange reserves. If we all use the same currency, we might not need to stock up on much foreign money, but that also would mean we will be more vulnerable to global financial issues. To stay safe, we'll have to spread our money around and be super careful about risks. So here we are comparing what trade rules would look like if we use the same BRICS currency versus sticking with our own money. Using the BRICS currency might mean changing up how we do trade with BRICS nations, which could be tricky, but we will also need to separate rules for other countries so we don't get left behind in the global market. This part is all about how the BRICS Development Bank could give our economy a boost if we could go with the BRICS currency. It could help us fund cool stuff like infrastructure and new technology, making us even stronger. The bank's support might just speed up our journey to becoming a top player in the economic world. So what happens if we say thanks but no thanks to the BRICS currency while our BRICS pals goes for it? Well, we might end up a little bit left out of the big decisions in the BRICS group, which could affect our sway, and we might not miss out on the special perks of being part and parcel of the BRICS currency club, which might slow down our growth.
Russia and Ukraine combined constituted about 5.4% of our total trade, so they're insignificant. So we can't then say, let's quickly move away from the existing arrangements. You see the dilemma we face?
So how do you begin to create the balance? Because the business community, you've seen them, you've heard them, they've been calling for this particular balance to say, let the business community, we've been interviewing them ahead of the summit, and they're saying South African government needs to strike a balance here. And when you are looking at what's happening now with the summit, there are some who are saying that unfortunately it does look like an anti-West summit. Others are saying try not to move as prematurely as we are seeing that this might be. So you are talking about how embedded we are, and it comes to the West and our economy is, but how do you begin to strike that balance in practical terms? Because what is happening now is leading to some split.
I suspect this notion that this is an assembly of the anti-West emerges from the West themselves. This meeting is not anti-anybody. This meeting is about ourselves deepening our relationship as the global South. That's what this meeting is about. It's not about anti-anybody. It's about deepening our relationship with the global South without I don't think any of those countries, India, want to be anti-West, right? I can tell you now, I don't think India want to be anti-West. I don't believe Brazil want the same. I don't think the Chinese want to be anti-West, is what I mean. So it's an impression which is being created, which is unfortunate. We're not anti-anybody. We're just saying let's deepen our relationship as countries of the global South.
In wrapping things up, the choice about BRICS isn't just about money, it's about our place in the world. As we have seen all through these chapters, there's a lot to consider, from trade to stability to relationships. The decisions we make will echo in the halls of global economics, shaping our journey forward. The BRICS currency project carries ambitious implications for the global economy and geopolitics. It could bolster the economic resilience of BRICS and other developing nations, fostering a more balanced global governance system. However, it also presents numerous uncertainties and challenges that will necessitate careful management and cooperation among the participating countries and other stakeholders.